Welcome to the latest installment of 52 Weeks of Leadership, sponsored by the CLOE Institute for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness at the University at Buffalo. So Dave, what's on your mind this week?
One of the things that I've been working on over the last 20 years of my career was this formula. I coined it a formula for organizational success, and put together the blog based on that. And
I saw that. It's a very interesting post.
Yeah. So you tell me, you want me to jump into the formula and kind of talk through it? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Sounds good.
So it's something that going back to my earlier days when I was working in human resources and in organizational development and behavior, I started looking at why do some organizations succeed more than others. And I began to just really pay attention, and I had the opportunity to work in industry, and it was my laboratory at the same time that I was also working and learning. So I started putting some thoughts down on paper and it starts with the vision, which most people understand. You know, it's important to have an organization needs to have a clear vision, and which is not always, it's easier said than done too. But once you get your vision right, then it's really what are the other factors that are driving why some organizations are more effective than others. So things from so my formula started to develop in terms of strategy, the importance of that, the importance of culture. Started to understand more of those components through my early parts of my career, and then really started to get to understand the value of execution. Any organization can have their vision right, their strategy right, and really emphasize or understand the importance of culture, but can they execute? And execute is really to the power of 2, 5, whatever, is what sets apart some others or organizations compared to others.
I couldn't agree more about execution, the importance of execution. Internal marketing. For the last 5 or 10 years, I'm seeing more articles published on the topic of internal marketing. How can we, when it comes to our mission, when it comes to an organization's value proposition, when it comes to the different products and services we sell, new initiatives that we have developed, how do we make sure that our managers and our employees are all on the same page? Yeah. And there's buy-in. Yeah. And to me, when you said execution, that's what I thought of. Sure. So important.
Yeah. You know, when it comes to this idea, this formula and internal marketing, it really, for me, what I've learned is it's about alignment. And I'll just take it from the leadership level, but alignment is through the organization, all the way right down to, you know, the last person hired, doing whatever job, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Alignment is so important, but you need to have it. You can't have it if you don't have it at the top. You're not going to have it at the mid-level manager or frontline manager, all the way down to the say factory floor employee.
Yep, absolutely.
So that was a key component of learning that I had through the years. You can get your formula right. You can, vision, strategy. You'll probably hear me repeat this many times. Strategy, culture, execution. But if you don't have that alignment, it's like as I wrote, it's like a rowing team. You get 1 or 2 person leaders that are just slightly off, and the boat starts to turn a little bit or starts to go slower. And and having that alignment, and it's easier said than done. You really have to keep working on that alignment. Do we have agreement on our strategy? Do we have agreement on what our value proposition is? Do we have agreement and alignment of what our culture is and how we execute all those things?
How do you get that agreement, Dave, at the top? In marketing, we spend a lot of time thinking about influencer marketing. Yeah. Who are the influencers within an ecosystem? In this case, we're talking about an organization. Yeah. How do you get that alignment?
It's work, and you can't take it for granted. I think my experience has been to bring back the formula time and time again. And we may be emphasizing our culture, in a given time compared to strategy or execution, but it's all about it's all the components always working. So it's always bringing that back around and really checking in with the leadership team. And are we clear on what our strategy is? Our strategic plan and our long-term goals. So with the formula, there's many components that are underneath the formula. Each piece has, for instance, on strategy, you're talking about your strategic plan. You're talking about your long-term goals. You're talking about your strategic, how you frame victory, things like that. Culture, you're talking about your values, your operating norms, things like that. So I'm constantly bringing that back around to seeing if we have alignment, and also paying attention to see maybe we're not there, and maybe we don't have alignment. We have to keep talking about that, because if we don't have it now, at that moment, I got to bring it back around, make sure that we can reach that alignment. I'm looking at this. That's a signal of that boat might start to go off course just a little bit. So how do I make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction?
And make sure that the leadership team then isn't sending mixed signals to middle management or the employees within the firm.
The organization must come first. Must win as an entity. And if we don't have that alignment at the very top, how can we expect our middle managers and the people that are looking at us to have that same level alignment? And what happens then? Politics start to creep into the organization, and just bad behaviors can start to emerge. And even if it's just a little bit, the idea is if you're really working on this formula, really driving for alignment, you can really keep politics to a minimum. I'm not saying that politics doesn't exist to a certain extent, but if you can minimize it, you're going to be a much more effective organization. That's the idea. The whole formula is all about effectiveness as an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the top, if you don't have that leadership alignment, if there's not agreement, then to your point, you mentioned politics, you mentioned bad behavior. What I have seen is that sometimes leaders will start sending mixed signals, and what I mean by that is you have your mission, you have your value proposition, you have different initiatives, and if one or more of the senior management team are not in agreement that let's say these three initiatives are the most important initiatives for the organization right now, let's say over the next 1 to 2 years or 2 to 3 years, if you have one or two members of the senior leadership team that don't really buy into that, then what happens is sometimes the communication that needs to be pushed out to middle management and other employees to get everybody on board, to push those initiatives. Very often the communication is inconsistent or it's lukewarm, and individuals within the firm can kind of read. They get a sense that, well, this senior manager, this other senior manager, they're talking the talk, but they're not walking the walk. They're providing lukewarm support. They really don't mean it. They really think that this other initiative is actually more important. So they might talk, they might talk the talk in terms of initiatives 1, 2, and 3, but it's kind of it's more kind of like a wink.
That's correct.
But what I really care about, and the people that are most close to me in the organization know that what I really care about is over here. Even though I have to say this. I really think something that is not in alignment with that.
That's true. And people are smart. They can sense it and feel it and pick it out pretty quickly that there is an alignment on this. And so what people start to do, right? They start to line up with their own self-interest too, and then politics start to really mushroom.
And you mentioned bad behavior. We see it with in marketing with customers, where one department or one manager or salesperson, sales manager is pushing one initiative to customers. Another manager is pushing a different initiative, and even though, let's say, it was agreed upon that for the next quarter or for the next year, Initiative A was we were going to really spend money and invest resources putting Initiative A to kind of the forefront when it comes to consumers. If you have part of the organization that isn't on the same page, then to your point, it's really an agency problem.
Yeah.
It's an agency problem. We have agents within the organization, whether we're talking managers or we're talking frontline employees, that really aren't behaving in accordance with the various initiatives,
strategic plan,
various
marketing
strategic
plans,
plans and marketing initiatives that they're supposed to be highlighting when it comes to customers.
Right.
They're not highlighting those initiatives.
Right.
And so the same thing with organizations, the same thing with managers and employees.
Yeah. It creates a tax on the organization, and I can't tell you exactly how it manifests in terms of the dollar amount, but that lack of alignment creates a tax up and down through the organization, and we can't take it for granted that alignment always exists. You're always working on it. You're always testing to see, do we have that alignment? And when you don't, you start to see and it can manifest right out through how the customer perceives
Yes.
The organization. And so real important to keep working on it to avoid that tax, because I'll argue that if you don't have alignment, you probably don't have a strong culture, because as everything we've just already been talking about, you're seeing it through the organization. There's politics, there's bad behavior, all those things.
Yep.
You can say it, but it's probably not really there. Trust levels are probably not as high as they can be, and trust matters in an organization, and in terms of effectiveness and ability to execute all those things. So sometimes taken for granted because they're soft things, but it matters.
There was just an article that came out earlier this year in Harvard Business Review by Colin Mitchell. The title of the article, Selling the Brand Inside. Selling the Brand Inside. And he touches upon a number of topics. One is this notion that when it comes to our customers and our clients, we very much understand the value of marketing research, surveying consumers, test markets, so forth and so on, A/B testing, you name it, focus groups. But he makes the case that very often, in his opinion, organizations, when they are trying to they're trying to maximize alignment when it comes to senior management, middle management, all throughout the organization, all the employees, everyone being on the same page, working toward a common goal.
Right.
Whether it be the top of the line mission, value proposition, initiatives that we've decided to highlight and invest resources in, different initiatives within the organization, all of the organization's products and services. So everyone on the same page, working toward a common goal. He makes the case that, unlike with customers, where we understand the importance of marketing research, very often we're not researching, in his mind, our employees enough. We're not researching our managers and our employees to really understand where the problems are.
Yeah.
As opposed to just kind of doing some armchair theorizing. Well, we think there's a problem here, or there's a problem over here with our culture. We think that people aren't supporting this initiative to the extent that they should be supporting it. And so he makes the case that, look, we have to really, just like we do with our customers and our clients, we really have to, whether it be through pulse surveys or other types of research formats, we really need to, on a continuous basis, research our employees, our managers, find out how they feel about different products, how they feel about our culture, and how that's trending over time.
I think it's a great point. You can't take for granted of, hey, we've got alignment at the top of leadership. How aligned is the rest of the organization? And don't just take it for granted. Go find out. And we do things here. We will do pulse surveys, culture surveys, pulse surveys to check in on that. Are we, we're saying one thing, are we walking the talk?
Yep.
And as the rest of the organization, are they just whipsawing behind us? No, they truly are walking a line step with us. So it's important to get that data, and it's a third party. It's not us doing it. It's somebody else coming in and asking the questions, and from products and service to our strategy to our policies to just how well the organization sees how effective the top leadership team is, and it gives us good feedback on, hey, we've got to do a better job.
And sometimes it could be politics, it could be bad behavior, but other times it could just be, and the research tells us this, people just don't understand. Right. There's maybe a lack of communication, a lack of clarity. It's not that they are intentionally kind of sabotaging the organization, or intentionally not working on the initiatives they should be working on. It's really a situation that maybe they don't understand. The value proposition over here, or the value proposition over with respect to another strategic business unit, or a particular product, or maybe we have some new initiative that we're working on, organization-wide, and they simply don't understand. Maybe it's a 5-part plan, or it's a 3-part plan, and they simply don't understand the plan as well as they really need to understand it to really put it at the forefront. And
you can't take it for granted that people understand. And I mean, that in communication, some of the classes I've taught in the past, I'll ask the students, have you ever heard this, that communication is so bad around here, and it's relative. Even when you think you're a good organization in terms of your how you communicate with your employees and your customers, you can always do better. And you can't rest on your laurels either, because becomes, once you reach a certain level of expectation, that becomes the bar, and you have to continue to work. You're never there. You never reach that, that ultimate pinnacle on the mountain when it comes to communicating. You always have to keep working. If you care, if culture matters, if you feel like
absolutely,
culture gives us a competitive advantage, you do it, and it's not like this is just extra work. This is just part of who we are, because it'll translate into whether it's higher sales or better product development or stock price, whatever the definition of success is for an organization.
And branding the information, I think, too, communicating it in the same way that we communicate information to our customers.
That's right.
Where we have some new organization-wide initiative, we have a branding campaign for it. We have a launch campaign. We might have a tagline or a logo for the initiative, and we stay on message always.
I think an important trait or characteristic for a leader is their ability to frame and provide the proper context to the organization, and so lining probably right up with as you're saying about branding. That's so important. You can't frame things every week. You're framing critical key messages and setting that context properly. That matters as a leader, because everyone else is out there working our executing the strategy, the plans and stuff. How well you frame will help keep that organization aligned and going in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Sometimes leaders, I think, may not remember the importance or the value of that.
I like that you just said that, because I really believe that is just so important. And how we communicate information to our customers, we explain our value proposition, we explain how our products fit, how our product line and all of the various products in our product line, how they fit together, and how they map onto the identity of our firm and our value proposition and our mission. And I think it's just as important to make sure that we're doing that for our internal customers, our employees and our managers, making sure that we're minimizing any confusion and lack of clarity, so that we kind of maximize the likelihood that individuals are going to, within the company, they're really going to understand what we're all about, what our organizational culture is all about, what our initiatives, why we're working, why we have the organization-wide initiatives that we have right now. It all fits together. We've explained it well, and we continue to explain it. We have multiple touch points within the organization where people are going to be exposed to on a regular basis to our mission, the various value propositions of our products, right. The initiatives that are most important to the firm, that there are multiple opportunities in the course of a week, a month, a quarter for individuals to be exposed to all of that.
Yes.
Taglines, logos, branding, and feel proud.
Yeah.
Feel proud about the company.
And if there's non-alignment, it's the leadership team to look in the mirror and not to blame anybody else. You know, don't look through the glass door. Look at the mirror and say that if we're seeing that lack of alignment of any of the things you just mentioned, it's because of us. Yep. And we have to do something about that. And that's probably the other learning that came along with this formula, and you know how that alignment can create, or lack of alignment can create attacks. The other piece to it is the commitment to it. Which I learned a lot over really through the pandemic. You can have all the formula, you can talk about alignment, and you can feel like you have it. You really get tested during difficult moments, whether it's a pandemic or you lost a major customer, or there's a regulatory issue or whatever. That's really where the top leadership team gets tested when it comes to, we say all these things and we're trying to live them, but are we committed? And that was probably the last piece of, and if you're not committed, same thing, you're creating attacks, or you're creating a less effective organization. And same thing, people in the organization watch and see that. They can say all these things, yep. And they're doing pretty good, but in tough moments, do they blink? Do they flinch? And that's where the commitment is. So if you're really hitting it hard from a leadership perspective, you're not only aligned, but you're also demonstrating your commitment. And that's where they're kind of brothers and sisters, you know, they're siblings, alignment and commitment. When it comes to both of those can act as a discount to the organization if you don't have them.
That's a really good point, Dave. How do you foster that commitment?
Yeah.
So when the chips are down, yeah. People live it. People live the organization. They live the identity. They live the mission. How do you foster that level of commitment?
Part of it is like, hey, if we believe in our strategy, we believe in our culture, we know how to execute, we're confident in our business systems to execute. All right, we're faced with this moment, you know, and we've demonstrated our alignment to these you know components of the formula. It's just the moment of like, all right, we're around at a table. Are we committed or not? And if we're not, before we just change courses, let's hash this thing out versus just change courses without having a discussion around what's the effect of this blinkable moment, you know, and this flinch. And so it's about talking. It's about staring each other in the eye and saying, are we for real or not?
That's interesting because we talk about touch points, yeah. and we talk about living the brand and living the culture on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. And I'm thinking that what I heard you say, correct me if I'm wrong, and I love it, is that by doing that on a daily basis, it becomes so ingrained that when there's a crisis moment, when the chips are down, when a big client is on the line, for instance, there's a regulatory issue, or you mentioned a few other things. Yeah. Because it has become so ingrained, because we've been living it on a daily basis, and because we've been making sure we do the research, we use pulse surveys and other forms of research to make sure every month, every quarter, to understand where the problems are. If there are problems, to understand where the problems are in terms of perception, in terms of alignment, and we take care of those issues before they become too big. Mm-hmm. And so because we do all of that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, we are then prepared our management team, our employees are prepared to react be their best selves,
Yeah.
their best organizational selves, and react the way we would hope that they're going to react when there is a potential crisis moment. They're
true.
going to rise to the occasion because they live it on a daily basis.
You're right on. You're always in spring training, always building the muscles, and I do that a lot now. Like, okay, I don't take for granted that I may take for granted that, okay, we agree on the strategy here or this tactical change that we're making, but I don't take for granted anymore that we have alignment. So I'm always testing on that, and I don't take for granted anymore that we have commitment. So one of the things I do as the leaders, I'm just always testing that. Are we aligned? People hear from me all the time. Do we have alignment? And I'm hearing that all the way through the organization now too, which is pretty cool. Do we have alignment? Great. Are we committed? Yes. Okay. How can we prove that we have that commitment? How are we going to demonstrate that? So, and to your point, you're doing it daily. You're not just on big moments of here's a brand new strategic plan. Of course, that matters. It's all the way through. So when you do have those moments of peril, or even it could be the opposite. It could be some great opportunity that's not in our strategic plan. Should we do this or not? And it brings it back around to what's the alignment? What's the formula for success? But also, do we have alignment or commitment? Should we do this or not? Whether it's for something, could be great, but could also be high risk.
Yep.
Versus something that, like a pandemic where you're just facing total uncertainty in the world, and how do you react to that? So.
Well, I love it. I love it. This has been a very enlightening conversation for me, Dave, and you are your organization and you as a senior leader within your firm. It's clear that you're deeply thinking about these issues and topics on a daily basis, and you're living it. You're living the discussion that we just had. So thank you so much for being part of the 52 Weeks of Leadership series, and thank you for tuning in for the latest installment of 52 Weeks of Leadership.